Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. I'm your host, BJ Odom. Each week we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving a 5-star review and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story yourself you'd like to share or comments about the podcast? Love to hear from you at giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast, as we welcome you to episode 77. Today's episode is extra special because we're talking about something very close to my heart. My brand new memoir, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget. But I didn't write the book alone. I had an incredible partner by my side, Christina Metcalf. Christina is not only a talented writer, she's also someone who understands the gift of life firsthand. She became a living donor to her half-sister, donating part of her liver, a true act of courage and love. When I shared my story with Christina, she saw more than surgeries and transplants. She saw humor, resilience, and hope. That carried me through. She agreed to take on the project as a passion project. And together, we brought my journey to life on the pages of a book, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget. Today, we'll talk about the writing process that surprised her most about my story and the message we both hope readers will take away from the book. Can't wait for you to hear this amazing conversation coming up next with Christina Metcalf. So, way back in episode 40, we met Christina Metcalf. And of course, the reason why we met her was because she was donating a piece of her liver to her half-sister. And so before we even get started on More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, your new book, which is basically a memoir of yours truly, BJ Odom, I'm excited about getting into this. But first of all, why don't you just kind of tell us how you got into the world of transplants and transplantation?
Well, actually, prior to my sister being diagnosed, I thought that transplants were few and far between. I didn't realize the great need that was out there. And I also didn't know that you could donate while you were still living. I thought all transplants were, gifts from deceased people to people who are on a list. And I didn't have any sort of personal connection to that. So I knew very little. The extent of my knowledge was when I went to apply for my license, they asked me if I wanted to be an organ donor, and I thought, sure, why not? So I checked that little box, but really didn't know much about organ donation, the great need there is, all the different kinds of people who are on it, all different ages, all different, diseases and illnesses and things like that. So how I kind of got into it or became more aware of the need was I was scrolling through social media and I saw a post where my half-sister was tagged, and she and I hadn't really spoken outside of social media for about 30 years since our father had passed away. The last time we spoke was his funeral. And in this social media post that she was tagged in, the person who had posted, a good friend of hers, said she had advanced liver disease and needed a transplant. And at first I thought it was some kind of weird joke, like it was, I don't know what I thought the gimmick was there, but I thought that surely this isn't true. This can't be true. I would have heard about it through the family grapevine first before I saw it on social media. So I reached out to another one of our sisters to see if this was some sort of a prank or someone had, maybe infiltrated her Facebook page and somehow, I don't know what I thought, some sort of thing was going on there. And she said, no, unfortunately, Sue needs a liver. And that's when I realized that I could potentially donate as someone who was still among the living.
Awesome. Well, now, what did being that living donor teach you about life, family, and resilience? And how did it maybe give you and influence you on the approach of when we went to write my memoir?
Mm-hmm. Well, from a personal standpoint, she and I had been estranged up until that point, and we didn't speak. It wasn't anything that, cantankerous that had happened between the two of us. It was just my father had been married twice. He had 6 children, Sue among that first 6, and then got a divorce and remarried and had my brother and me. And so there was a big age gap between the two of us. We weren't raised together. We only saw each other on occasion. So once he passed away, there was really no connection that remained. So you ask what it taught me about family. It taught me about you never know when you're going to be called upon. And I want to be very clear, Sue didn't call upon me, actually. I saw it on social media and volunteered to take the tests and take all the tests, go through the testing process and see if I was a fit for her. But the way I looked at it was, if you know you have something that could mean life for somebody else, I couldn't imagine not trying. I mean, sure, I could have gone through those tests and they could have said, hey, you have this problem or that problem. You're not a good fit here. Your blood tape is wrong. I mean, there are a million reasons why someone might deny you to actually donate. I don't want to make it sound like you decide to donate and then they take your organ the next day. But I thought if the roles were a little bit different and I was standing at a lake and I saw someone drowning, I'm not just going to turn around and walk away because I don't feel like getting wet or, the water's cold. So the way I look upon it now is that you just don't know in your life when you're going to be called upon, when someone's going to need something, and that a simple gift, whatever that is, whether it's, an organ or it's financial or just your time, a simple gift can change someone's life, can give them life. So I think that's what kind of changed for me. Like I saw, it kind of pulled me out of my own little secular world and gave me an opportunity to do something for someone that I probably wouldn't have sought out on my own. I'm not that amazing of a person there are some really incredible people out there who just naturally are like, I want to give everything I can. I want to give my liver. I want to give a kidney. I mean, I know double donors because kidneys also can be donated while you're still living. So there are people out there who just, want to do everything they can. And I wasn't that philanthropic of a person, but I had this opportunity to help, and it really awakened my awareness of the need for organ donation. I had no idea prior to this.
Well, I know back, in episode 40 afterwards, and I found out you were an author. I said, hey, people have been telling me for years I need to write a book. And I know you said that this is kind of a passion project for you. And so what was it about my story that made you say yes as a co-author with more parts than a chicken nugget?
Well, like you said, I mean, it was, there's a need for this message to get out there. You have a great story. You have, even though you've had many, many health setbacks, you have remained very upbeat and with a positive attitude. And I think that has served you really well throughout your life, no matter what the setbacks you have, no matter what the setbacks are that you've had. And just as, I kind of got tapped on the shoulder with that social media post and realizing I could do something, I really thought if we tell your story, if we get it out there in book form, if we start talking about and opening up even more dialogue about the importance of organ transplants and the great need, I mean, the tremendous need. Every time I see those numbers, I'm just shocked by them. Just so many people waiting for, an organ to save their lives. And so many people die waiting. It's really a tragedy. And I don't think it gets talked about enough. I don't think it's covered enough. And so this was just a way people remember stories. And I could get on this podcast here and tell you just how many people are on the waiting list and how many people die. And I can give you all those stats, but they're not going to have as big an impact as hearing a story about someone who was a double transplant survivor. So when you said you wanted to write a book and I was a writer, I just thought this is a natural pairing here where we can really get this story out, both for you personally and then the wider conversation of the importance of organ donation.
Well, as a writer, though, how did you balance telling my story and making, it sound authentic while, still shaping the book that's something readers would be connecting with and enthralled with? How did you go about doing that? That, to me, that's most of the game, really.
Well, you have a great story to tell, so that kind of helps. My work there is already done. I've written both fiction and nonfiction, and in fiction you have to kind of come up with the plot yourself and have to do the story arc and all of that. And really, with your story, the plot was already there. We just had to shape it into a logical progression of going through all of the different things that you faced and how your attitude was such a big part of that.
Well, one thing too that and I didn't mean to stop you there, but we also go back all the way, to my childhood as a little farm boy in Indiana, and my parents having a silver mine, and then through all my medical issues and other parts of my life as being, kind of a sickly little boy growing up. So you put it together well. I will give you triple thumbs up or 4 thumbs up or 5 or however you're supposed to do it on the chart. But I'm like, because I would just tell you stories, basically. Then you would, copy them down and record them. And then you put this amazing book together. So I really do appreciate it. Now, thank you. Was there a moment in my story that kind of surprised you or really touched you and you just didn't expect it while you were writing? Did something just really like, oh my God, did you get an oh my God moment? I guess that's what I'm asking.
I did. And before I answer that question, I want to just say also, when you're working on a memoir, whether you're, working with a co-writer or you're working on your own, unless you're a big celebrity and it's a Hollywood tell-all kind of situation, what you're looking for are pieces of the story that someone will read and be like, I feel that. Whether they understand it because they've been in the same situation, or whether they've been on the other side of the table and watched someone they loved go through some of that, whatever the topic of the memoir, whatever that part of it is ideally you're just looking to make a connection with the audience. And it's easy to do with our book because you're a likable character. I mean, I'll say character in quotes, you're a person, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I'm a character. You got it right the first time.
People are going to, read this and they're going to be cheering for you, that you make it through. And spoiler alert, you have, obviously. but so getting back to your question about the moment, I think it was just like hearing I knew you were a double transplant survivor, and that is by no means a small thing. That puts you in a very small category, I think, of people who are thriving, and you've had a lot of setbacks. And I think it was just hearing details about each one of those setbacks. That it wasn't, it's easy to just say, oh, there is an organ transplant. But I don't think people understand everything that's involved with the organ transplant, both on the side of the individual who gave the organ, and all the testing that goes on, and all of the medical practices, and then your drugs afterwards that you have to take, and all of the things that you have to watch afterwards. I mean, you've had limitations on your entire life for different medical things that you've gone through, and yet you keep this happy-go-lucky attitude. And I know there are times in the book that we discuss that it wasn't always sunshine and roses, but that you attribute a lot of you surpassing doctors' expectations and beating the odds to keeping that good attitude. So I don't know that it was one moment as much as it just was those consistent moments. Like you just kept getting back up again. You get knocked down, you'd get back up again. And it's a feel-good story. And I know how important attitude is when it comes to healthcare, because I've seen very closely in my own life. My father passed away from lung cancer when I was 18, and he was a physician. So the moment he got that diagnosis, he was in the physician's mind, and he knew it was stage 4. And so in his mind, he already knew what that meant. That meant death. And he wasn't going to battle it or fight it, because he already had all the statistics he needed that would tell him exactly where he was going to end up and probably how many months it would take. And you did the exact opposite of that. You had this information from doctors, and you're just like, yeah, okay. You go do you. I'm going to keep doing me.
Well, some of it was. I will say this, because in the book we talk about, my first open heart surgery, 22 months old. And then again at 13 in 1968, I had this life-saving, it wasn't a transplant, it was a surgery that really, I was 13 years old, and I wasn't, just a dumb, kid that didn't know anything. But I don't think I ever realized that my chances were as low as they were. If that, and I know as we, had our conversations, that was out there, but, I don't know. It's because, and my parents never really was they babied me, but they didn't baby me like, we're going to lose you at any time. It was more like a loving babying me, if you understand my drift, where other people in the neighborhood, they knew. And I was just like going around going, hey, I'm goofy.
But as you got older and faced health setbacks,
then
you knew then.
Yeah,
you
know
knew
the
what
risk.
the odds were then.
Yeah, so and speaking of meds, I believe it. If I go crazy during this interview, I started new meds today. I've been getting a lot of skin cancers, which is part of the transplant world. And they said, well, let us try some new medications and some new anti-rejection drugs. And so anything could happen during this interview, because I'm about an hour into the new meds, but I don't think they'll take any wild turns, an hour into it. But at least my wife has an EpiPen in case I need to. Dear, get your EpiPen out quick. These aren't agreeing with me. See, this is it. I don't care what the situation is. I still make a joke out of it. And people, if you're out there listening or you're reading the book, and please read the book, More Parts of the Chicken Nugget. It's available now on Amazon. You can get it, on ebook, or you can, buy the book. But when this comes out, it will be out to the world. So please, I'll be on my knees. Go out and buy my book. So what do you hope, as the writer, people will take away from this book?
I hope they'll enjoy the story. I hope that it will make them, as they're reading it, I hope that they'll be cheering for you. I mean, again, obviously we know the outcome, to a certain extent. So there is that, like, we've taken away the surprise ending, so to speak. But I think there are a lot of things today that people are struggling with, whether you're talking about the costs of just, the household costs, or just feeling down in the dumps about things that are going on. People are struggling now. And I think that a feel-good story is what everybody needs, like beating the odds. That's great. That's like, we all could use a little of that in our lives. And I'm hoping that twofold, that people come away from reading the book feeling better about things. Maybe they're looking at their struggles and they think, you know what, I can do this too. This is okay. I can get through this, whatever it is that they're struggling with. And I also hope that they realize the great need of organ donation out there. And, I mentioned this back in episode 40, but prior to my involvement with liver donation, I was under the misconception that, these were people who had led a rough life. They had just partied all day, all night, and not that that means anything. But that's what I was thinking. If you needed a liver, you had basically just worn yours out. And that's simply not the case. And not that it should be a reason not to give someone an organ. I'm not saying that at all. But like, it really made me aware of all the different things that are causing people to need organs. And I'm hoping that when they read your book, they kind of, if they haven't been touched by organ donation, they don't know anyone who needs an organ. Once they read your book, that they kind of they put a face to the need for organ donation. So it's not only a great story, I'm a little biased, I admit, but it's also a feel-good moment and for a great cause.
Okay, so now let's put yourself in you're on Not My Podcast. You are now back in the days of Oprah, or maybe Jenna Bush had called you and asked you to come on with Jenna Bush and Friends. And, Jenna doesn't know you from Adam, but she knows you have written some books. So she says to you, so Christina, what is this book all about?
It's about hope. Just period, end of sentence. It's about hope. And I think we all could use some hope.
Okay. That's kind of a short answer for Jenna, but I'll take it.
Jenna, call me. Call us.
That's what I'm hoping. I want us to get on the horn with Jenna and make sure that we make it on with Jenna. I will even tag her in this episode.
and Reese, while you're out there too, Reese Witherspoon, Oh yeah, she's got hope.
Yeah, she's got.
I know you like that.
Yeah, she's got a book club too.
She does. And you know what? It doesn't just have to be celebrities. I'm going to tell you right now, if there's someone out there listening who wants to read a story about hope and has a book club that maybe could benefit, with a story that has a feel-good ending and give us a call, or I don't know, get in contact with you. You do that. You do that part of it. You tell them what to do and how to contact you. But definitely could do book clubs, and if one is near you, maybe you could even be a part of that.
Well, like my son now, he's a go-getter anyway. Let's just say that, and you've met him not really face to face, but some phone conversations and some other, because he's been working on the book cover with one of his, guys. And so, yeah, he's got me doing all sorts of things now. And I'm supposed to be retired at 70 years old. And he's got me working my hiney off. He's wanting to promote this. He's come to me with so many ideas about how to promote this book. I can't even keep track of all of them anymore. Well,
that's fantastic.
I just want to say I really appreciate, because people have told me for years and years and years that I needed to write a book. And I go, oh, yeah, I need to write a book. That I had such, but this was not only writing a book with you. This was therapy for me. And I don't know if I think I did mention this to you, because I had some pediatric mothers, because on the podcast, it's weird. I go through it seems like I get a lot of livers back to back to back, because I think, maybe a liver recipient or something hears this, and then they tell other recipients or other people in their genre, their livers. And so they all of a sudden, all these liver people, then all of a sudden there's a bunch of heart people. And then, all of a sudden, so I went through this, and it's while we were writing the book, and I was giving you stories about, my youth and my childhood and all the things I went through at the same time and maybe it's the way God works. I don't know, but I was getting all these pediatric mothers that were on the podcast talking about their children with heart transplants and lung transplants and how they were in the hospital and how they were hooked to all these machines, but yet they were still laughing and they were still playing with their toys and everything. And so I would tell them, back in those days, that was my normal. And when I told them that, I could hear that, I don't know, you could hear it in their voice, something that I said about I was living my normal. And I wasn't worried about all the outside noise. I wasn't worried that I was the guy that was in the hospital, because I knew all my other friends, they weren't in the hospital. They were at school or they were out playing basketball or something. And I don't know, I think they really related to it. And like I said, it was better than therapy, because I released a lot of stuff to those mothers and I released a lot of stuff to you all at the same time. And then, of course, I know it was my story, and maybe this is the way it's supposed to be, and I hope maybe some other people do it, but I'm reading the pages that you wrote, and I will say that they're a lot more elegant than what you would ever get from BJ Odom. Let's just go on record and say that right now. I'm not afraid to say that. Those were a lot of Christina Metcalf's words and not BJ Odom's words. But they were my story. But I would sit there and read some of these chapters back, and I would cry like a baby. I mean, the tears would just come flooding down. And it's like, why am I doing this? I lived through this, but still reading it back was just, and even my son said, he, of course, he's all gung ho, like, let's go, get this book on as many shelves and get as many people buying it as we can. But he also said, but just to get that out into the world, whether you sell 10 books or 10 million books, getting your story out there, I think, was an accomplishment, he said, and, well worth the time.
Absolutely. I mean, your story is just, I really hope it does move people the way, I mean, like you said, it's your story. So, and you lived through it, but I hope it does move people. I mean, that was part of the point, was for people to feel what you had gone through and what thousands, hundreds of thousands of people go through to a certain extent with, I mean, even more than that, because if you throw in anyone who has medical issues where they're really struggling, I mean, it's really a beautiful story. And again, I'm a little biased, but.
Well, I should be more biased than you are. It's my story. But, I think what people will learn that, like when they hear us talking and they hear us talking on a podcast about transplants, I do kind of want to stress too, the book is not all about transplants, because in the early days, it wasn't, no one was talking about heart transplants, and no one was talking about, like I said, any transplants. It was all about staying alive. Even, at the age of 13, the surgery that I had, I was the oldest living to even have it. Everybody else in my circumstances had passed away. So it is a story about survival and hope, like you said. And I hope it works and brings it out and makes people, like you said, feel good and feel hope. Because I really think the attitude, and I told you, I think every time that we probably talked and you interviewed me about different stories in my life, I said, I still think that positive attitude is the one and only most important thing. And as I talk to transplant patients on this podcast, a lot of them say that they believe it too. They believe that it was, they're smiling through some of it and they're pushing through it. So hopefully people will go out and buy the book, More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget, now available on Amazon. Go out and buy it. Now, before we let you go, though, Christina, BJ Odom, the memoir, or, More Parts Than a Chicken McNugget, not your only book. You've been writing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about some of the other projects you've worked on and things that they might want to go? Because, your books are still available that you wrote all on your own without some goofy guy giving you stories.
Yes. So I have several fiction books that are available on Amazon as well. They're all different kinds of genres. But my most recent project was called The Glinda Principle, and that's a nonfiction book. And it was inspired by things I was going through myself because I am an empty nester now for the first time, obviously. And it's, I think women spend a lot of time putting themselves second or third or fourth in their own life, and they build their lives around whether husband, pet, kids, whatever it is, like they put themselves second. And then when that husband or child or whatever career dries up, goes away, grows up, whatever the case may be, a lot of us feel sort of lost, and we're not really sure what to do with the second part of our lives. So the Glinda Principle, which I'll do a quick plug, is an award-winning book now. I was recognized this summer by the Florida Authors and Publishers Association. So if you are in the second part of your life and you're kind of wondering, like, where's my passion? What do I want to do? Pick it up. The Glinda Principle. It's on Amazon, and it's in both ebook and print form.
Yes. And hopefully people will just, if they don't have that book, they'll go out and buy that book along with More Parts of the Chicken McNugget. And boy, they've got some great reading on the way.
Absolutely. And the cover is so cute too. The cover of the More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget is just adorable.
That was kind of basically a little bit in the back of my mind as an idea. And then all of a sudden my son took on the project. He didn't really change it. He enhanced it. And I'm really looking forward to, hearing from people that have read the book and what they're thinking. And like I said, now I can finally, people won't be harping me. You need to write a book. You need to write a book. Well, it's written. More Parts Than a Chicken Nugget available on Amazon. And if you don't like that one, pick up the Glinda Project today. Anything else you want to mention before we let you go?
No, that covers it. Just it's been a great project. I've loved working with you. People may not, now you'll be able to turn it around and say, well, I did write a book, but maybe now people are going to say, write a second book. Who knows?
Well, I'm on these new meds now. And of course, I'm supposed to get radiation next week. So, we're getting to the point, where I'm going to have another chapter probably in the next couple of months.
There you go.
Well, again, I really do appreciate it. And I don't know if it was, the Lord that put us together and entwined us or what, or how it happened. I have not a clue, but I'll tell you, I will say this. I'm so happy that we did get to meet. Although we've never met in person, believe it or not, people, we've never met in person. And in fact, now you're a Texas girl, because when we first met, you were a Florida girl. And now you're out there hee-hawing it up in Texas. Let me get a good hee-haw out of you before I let you go.
I do love the rodeo. I'll tell you that.
Well, she hadn't been out there long enough because I didn't get a hee-haw from her.
No, I can't quite do that yet.
You will. It's not that far away. Hey, thanks for joining us, and you have a marvelous day, young lady.
Thank you. You too. And let me know when you're ready for book 2.
I will. Be sure to join us each week for a new heartfelt episode. And if you have a transplant story, email us giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, and also don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends. And we would appreciate that 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Another podcast you might enjoy is myself and my former radio partner, Bill Stevens. BJ and Bill, the podcast, all on the Podcast Playground Network. We want to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.
He was running on empty, heart fading fast. Doctor said, man, you ain't gonna last. But a stranger's kindness, a gift so true, turned the night sky into something new. He got a second chance, he got a brand new spark. Like a freight train rolling back from the dark. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. "15 years later, the road got rough. The fight ain't over when the climb is tough. Needed a kidney, the race was on. Another hero stepped up, kept him strong. Every breath he takes is a tale of hope. One life saved, another can cope. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. Doctor's hands, a donor's grace, running on down to a brand new place. Second chances don't come twice, but when they do, man, they feel so nice. So let's spread the word, let the people know. One yes today lets a miracle grow. You don't need wings just to save a man, just a little love, a helping hand. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. BJ still rockin', still standing tall, thanks to the ones who gave it all. Gift of life, hear the sound. Pass it on, pass it down. The Gift of Life podcast, hosted by BJ Odom. Listen now. Listen now.